What's going on, everyone? My name is Cam. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a little while, but I promise you there were some decent reasons. I have some excuses. I was super busy, a lot going on. It's gray and rainy like 8 out of 12 months here in Vancouver. We're finally getting into the sun. I'm finally getting that vitamin D to make me feel a little bit of dopamine. We are starting out with a very boring video. Today's video, unfortunately, won't be that exciting. We're going to be talking about color management in Davinci Resolve. When I watched all the tutorials trying to learn this stuff, I was like dying inside because I was just like, oh, it's so technical, so boring. I just want to make the colors look nice. However, we will get to that, I promise. But color management is absolutely crucial when you first start out color grading, and if you fuck it up, your entire project is just not going to happen. Nothing's going to look good. This series of videos is hopefully going to at least impart a little bit of knowledge upon you. Hopefully I can teach you a couple things. Maybe you can teach me some things in the comments. If you see something you're like, oh, I don't like that, maybe that's not the best way to do it, feel free. I'm always down to have an open and respectful dialogue. I'd love to talk color grading. If anyone has any tips and tricks or catches me slipping. However, I've found that most of the techniques that I'm going to be showing y'all during this series have worked splendidly for me during my career over the past 3-ish years as a colorist here in Vancouver. Enough talking, enough babbling, enough of that nonsense. Let's get into the video, and before we get into the actual technical nitty-gritty, I'm going to roll a little bit of my work so you can see what I'm about, what I've done. Talk to you in a bit. Woo! Okay, so now that we're in Resolve, we need to color manage this project that I have open. I've got a few clips here lined up from a recent music video shot by my friends Sar and Abdo, who did an absolutely killer job. Really fun project to work on. This video was shot on a red helium, which means that it was using Red's IPP2 color pipeline, which is their new color management technology, which is a lot better than what they had in the past, and where you had tons of different color spaces and gammas to choose from to convert your image from its log source color space that it was shot in camera to Rec. 709, which is a normalized image that looks good on a monitor, your laptop, your TV, your computer, whatever, you know what I mean? We need to use Red's IPP2 color pipeline and Resolve's color management tools to turn this log image in front of us here into Rec. 709, which is going to make it look more normal and will give us a great baseline starting point for our color grade. The first technique, you would go down here to the bottom right to your project settings. And to color manage using Resolve's color management, you simply would click the color science dropdown, switch it to color manage. So now what this is going to do is it's going to essentially automatically convert your footage from log into Rec. 709 by reading the metadata in each clip in the timeline. For here, we would go SDR, just because we're going to be grading in Rec. 709. Boom! There's our Rec. 709. It looks pretty good to me. From here we would begin our grade, you know, we could do a little bit of primaries, whatever, like literally whatever we want. If these are clips that are like H.264s, ProRes, or have Rec. 709 burnt into them, these clips are not going to be able to be read by Resolve's color management system, and as a result they will not automatically convert, which means that you will have to manually tell Resolve what camera the footage that you're working with came from. And if you were dealing with multiple different cameras and it wasn't working, you know, to fix that you'd have to go to bypass color management, and that would essentially take the clip which you're selecting and pulling it out from the pool of clips that are being color managed by Resolve. So then you can isolate it and do what you need to do on a clip by clip basis if you wanted Resolve to stop color managing them because it was messing up or whatever. Since it's automated, it's obviously subject to certain issues which may not arise if you were to do it manually. However, I do find for the most part it's pretty excellent, and the only reason I don't use it all the time is just because it can be a little clunky when you're dealing with mixed camera timelines and things like that. It's honestly a personal preference thing, so I wouldn't discourage anyone from using Resolve's color management. I do think it's great, and there definitely is a time and place in which I will use it. Anyways, let's reset our project back to its original settings, and we will move on to our next method of color management. We're back in log, and for our next method, this is a very common one, especially people who are editing in something like Premiere. You usually just use a conversion LUT. And to navigate to my LUTs, I just go up here. We are going to go to red, and let's try this one. Red wide gamut log 3G10, which is red IPP2 color space and gamma curve. And we will just double click this and pop it on. So looks pretty good. It definitely looks a little different from what Resolve's color management was giving us. Depending on how well lit and well shot the footage you're working with is, that is going to determine how well the footage responds to various different methods of color management. So just be aware that if you're dealing with some sub-optimally lit or maybe not the best shot footage in the world, just audition a couple different forms of color management, see what you get, and odds are you are going to find a method that does work well. So now I'm going to introduce you to the color space transform tool. So the color space transform basically has all of the technical information regarding the color spaces and gammas for a ton of different camera manufacturers. And when you select which color spaces and gammas you want to be using and, tell the color space transform node what to convert it out to, it will do so in a mathematically and technically correct manner, ensuring that you will get the most accurate log to Rec. 709 transform that you can within Davinci Resolve. You go to Effects, and then take this color space transform, and you are going to enter, in this case, it would be red, wide gamut RGB, log 3G10, and then we are going to output to what we're going to be monitoring in, which is Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4. This is what you're going to use for any sort of SDR stuff, videos for YouTube, social media. You're not really going to need to use much aside from Rec. 709 unless you're grading in a really high-end color facility. But for our intents and purposes, Rec. 709 Gamma 2.4 is all we need to know. Last thing, you're just going to want to go to gamut mapping and hit saturation compression. And just have that enabled. You can adjust things if you want, see what you like. And what this saturation compression is doing, it's taking all the saturation values for all the colors in the image, and it just kind of wrangles them, so to speak, to get them under control, to make sure nothing's really super glowy and nasty and weird. So if I were using the color space transform like this, I would have most of my balance and primaries and exposure adjustments happening before it in the node tree, just because you wouldn't want to be doing all those adjustments here after it has already been compressed, so to speak, color-wise. Until you hit this node, your image is still in log, right? Meaning you have the most dynamic range and the most flexibility with what you can adjust. The only things that would come after my color space transform in this type of node tree would be my effects like glow, grain, halation, texturing, things like that. But the rest would all happen beforehand. So they got this vintage Angenu zoom lens, which they ended up using for some of the static shots as well. But this lens is super old, right? So as a result, it has its own little funky characteristics of how it looks. So as a result, I wanted all the shots that were using that lens to be grouped together. To set up these groups, you're going to want to select the shots that you would like to group together, like so, and just hit Shift and clicked. These are both on the zoom lens, and I'm going to hit Add into New Group. Because in this video, the room was lit pretty much the same way throughout the entire thing, the zoom lens wasn't being used in different shots with different lighting setups, like a night exterior, or maybe they went RGB. There was none of that. It was just the same overall lighting setup. So I grouped all the zoom lens shots from the whole video in one go, all together in one group, just like this. Boom. Okay. And now I'm going to select the other 3 clips, and I'm going to add them to a new group. Sigma Cines. Okay, so now that we have our group set up, you're going to notice up here in the top right, there are now 4 dots where there once was 2. So this is the group pre-clip. So this is going So each of these dots represents one page of nodes that you can add. This is the group pre-clip, this is the clip, this is the group post-clip, and this is the timeline. So to explain what these are doing, the clip is any adjustment on here will be specific to the shot that you have open in your viewer here. So if I add contrast here, then that is going to add contrast to this shot only. On the group pre-clip, you have adjustments that apply to all of the clips within your group, but it is carrying out whatever process you are before the clip level corrections and effects are being added. The group post-clip, again, affects the entire group, but any actions you do here will be done after the clip level adjustments. And here is the timeline level, in which anything you do here will just affect all the clips in your entire timeline. So that would affect all 5 of the clips we have here. This would affect just these 3. This would affect just any one shot that you're on. And yeah, that's the gist of it. It's pretty simple. So now that we're getting into my personal favorite method of color managing, we need to do a few things. Like I said, there's a few steps to it, so do bear with me. Back to the project settings, we're going to go to Timeline Color Space, Davinci Wide Gamut, and then we're going to go to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4, and we're going to stay in Davinci YRGB. No automatic color management is being done. Davinci Wide Gamut basically gives me the largest working color space, which means that I will be able to manipulate a wider range of colors and tones than I would in something like Rec 709, for example, because we're going to, like I said, be using the color space transform to compress that Davinci Wide Gamut signal down into Rec 709, so it's going to be viewable on a normal monitor. So now we're going to hit that, and things stay the same because we've still got everything in log. We haven't done any transformations at this point in time. So the first step, we are going to add a color space transform to our group pre-clip. Okay, so here we are going to go from the source color space, red wide gamut, log 3G10, log 3G10. Now we're going into Davinci Wide Gamut, into Davinci Intermediate. And at this point in the node chain, we're not going to hit that saturation compression. We're going to do that on the next color space transform we're going to be adding, which is going to go out to Rec 709. So now we're going to put our second color space transform, and like I said, this is going to take us out to Rec 709. So we're going to go from Davinci Wide Gamut, Davinci Intermediate, Rec 709, Gamma 2.4. Now we're going to hit that saturation compression and just adjust it a little. Now that we've color managed one of these shots fully using our node tree here, we just simply go over to our next shot in the Sigma Cine group and middle mouse click, apply grade. Boom, there's our color space transform, the group pre-clip, that's doing its thing. Now we need to color manage our second group of clips, and since these are shot on the same camera, we're going to just be inputting the exact same settings as we did before. So I'll just take my group pre-clip CST, I'm going to paste it here, and then go to my clip level, boom, boom. Anyways, that's all I got for today's video. I hope you have learned something, and I hope one of these methods of color managing ends up working well for you. Up next, we're going to be diving into doing our primary exposure adjustments and balancing our images to make sure everything matches up before we add our stylistic elements of our look, our textures, and any effects we may want to use on this grade. So I look forward to continuing this video series, and I will see y'all very soon in the next video. Take care now.